Today we're actually talking about cultivation fundamentals. And I am Sabrina Walker Hernandez. And this presentation, so just so that you know, is being recorded. And the recording and slides can be emailed to you upon request. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll try to address them at the end. Of course, with a formal Q&A session. So just a little bit about me. So I studied political science and public administration, and I obtained a nonprofit management certification from Harvard Business School. And for the last 25 years, I've worked in the nonprofit industries in direct services, operations, and executive leadership. In 2018, I was diagnosed with cancer and felt I needed to retire. Now, why would I put that in there? I put that in there because that is the whole reason I started my company, Supporting World Hope, is because I want to support nonprofit professionals, volunteers, and board members so that they don't have to be stressed out. And that was one of the causes of my cancer. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. And so I have a VIP resource library on my website that you can go in, and there's a host of documents around board, fundraising, and marketing. So if you need a board job description, if you need how to do a PSA, a sample, anything like that, it is in there. And I do these webinars once a month. I also have a group. I also have a Facebook group where I go live every Thursday at 6 p.m. and I do free coaching. And every day at 2 o'clock, I post a free resource for nonprofits because I know you don't have the time to go and research and do all those things. So that is the whole mission of my company, Supporting World Hope, is helping people take their nonprofit to the next level and helping reduce the stress on those who are actually out there doing the nonprofit work. And so what I do is I do workshops, I facilitate board retreats, I do webinars, I do coaching, and I also do consulting. And so who will benefit from this webinar today is going to be nonprofit CEOs or development staff looking to use cultivation as part of their fundraising, or nonprofit board members looking to use cultivation and fundraising, or really anyone looking to enhance their fundraising experience. And so the goal for this webinar is to understand the difference between cultivation and stewardship and understand the benefits of relationship building. And I want you to feel more confident in visiting with people and understanding the value of strategic questions and active listening when you do visit with people, and to gain cultivation planning tools. And so let's first talk about what that resource development cycle looks like. And so this is the framework that kind of shows you the big picture of the 6 stages to build your donor pipeline. And this is the process map. And you have the first stage being identify. So how are you going to identify your potential donors? And then stage 2 is qualify. How do you qualify them to show if they have an affinity for your organization and if they have the ability to give to your organization? And then what we're going to focus on today is stage 3, which is cultivation. And I always say that fundraising is like dating. You have to court the people once you identify. And so cultivation is that courting process in this dating game. So let's talk about the difference between cultivation and stewardship, because oftentimes people get confused by that, and it's a really clear distinction, and you need to understand what that distinction is. So cultivation is everything that happens between the time you identify a person as a donor for your organization and the first ask. It's the actual process of building the relationship. Whereas stewardship is acknowledging, recognizing, and maintaining the good relationship with people who have given a gift to your organization. So cultivation is building the relationship, and stewardship is maintaining the good relationship after someone has given. And so you need to recognize the difference between the two, because you're actually in different stages of the relationship when you are talking about cultivation and stewardship. And if you have a visual of that processing map, it's actually cultivation, then you do the ask, and then it's stewardship. So how do you start to build the relationship? How do you start? What is the cultivation really based on? And it's based on trust. It's based on respect. It's based on mutual goals, appreciation, and it's based on communication. And so as you build that relationship, you have to establish trust and respect. And you have to, as you're talking to people and you're building that relationship, you're trying to figure out what it is that the donor wants. And so you establishing those mutual goals, and you're showing appreciation and communication. So let's talk about first, why do people give? So people give because they're responding to a meaningful mission. People give to impact programs. People are inherently generous. And what I know to be true after 25 years is people give to people. And people give because they respect and trust the person who asked them. And so I want to kind of focus in on those last two. People give to people, and people give because they respect and trust the person who asked them. I will say, just in my experience on being on the donor side, I've, in the past month, have given to 4 different organizations. And it was not because of the mission, unfortunately. It really was because of the person who asked me to give. I respected and I trusted that person who asked me to give. And so in support of them, I then gave to that organization. And you will find that to be the case a lot. And I'll sidetrack here a little bit. That's why it's very important who you place on your board. Do they have the respect and the trust of the community? Are they door openers? Do they have a lot of relationships then that they can then turn around and ask and be given for the organization? Now, what cultivation is, now that I have given to this organization, not because of the mission, but because of the person who asked me, what the organization's job is to cultivate a relationship with me once I am in that pipeline. And so that's what I hope that we are going to be able to shed some light on that process for you. So the first thing is, why do people stop giving? So I just mentioned to you that I have given to 4 organizations this past month, and not one of them have sent a thank you card or have acknowledged my gift. And so that's the first thing. They didn't feel thanked or valued. And so the one thing that you can do to get ahead of the game, and we're going to this a little bit more, is make sure you send at least an acknowledgement or a thank you card. And if you really want to set yourself apart, send a handwritten note. So they received too many solicitations, or the organization asked for inappropriate amounts. People stopped giving because the organization changed leadership or activities. The donor personally changed philanthropic focus or decided to support other causes, or the donor's household circumstances changed. You know, their financial change, or they relocated, or the employment changed. So cultivation equals growing relationships one person at a time. So here's some great cultivation tools. Face-to-face visits. Face-to-face visits still reigns king. And I do not want you to be discouraged because we are in a pandemic and we're talking about face-to-face visits. Zoom is a great tool for face-to-face visits. That means that you're developing an intimate relationship and you can look into someone's eyes. So face-to-face visits still reigns king, whether you're using Zoom or you are actually in person over a lunch or what have you. It still is the best way to cultivate a donor. Tours of your nonprofit organization. If you are fortunate to have a established facility where you offer your programs, invite them in for a tour of your nonprofit. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is change who does the tour. So as the CEO, yes, go on that tour with them. But if you have clients that can lead the tour and tell what happens in each space in your nonprofit from their perspective, that is going to get you more traction because your clients are not paid as a CEO would be to tout their organization. And they're going to be very honest, and they're going to, their commitment to the organization and the benefits that they've received from the organization is going to shine through. So anytime you invite someone on a tour of your nonprofit, I would say try to have that tour scheduled at a time, first of all, when there's activity going on, if possible. And then second of all, have that tour led by a client. So in my case, I was a youth serving organization. So you really can't ask for a better tour guide than a youth. So the other great cultivation tool is ask for advice, ask for the potential donors' advice or feedback. And where advice is given, money is soon to follow. And so you can pick up the phone and you can ask for advice. You can send out a survey and ask for advice. But what I do know is where advice is given, money is soon to follow because people like sharing their opinion. And if you're asking for their opinion, you are building trust in that model of cultivation. So having fun and impactful activities with the clients, if possible. You can arrange a day of caring project. This is where you get the donor in and you actually have an interactive with your clients. You can have small gatherings at board members or donors' home. You could do a breakfast with the president of the board or with the CEO, and calls on important days like birthdays, Valentine's days, Easter, things of that nature, or wedding anniversaries, if you have access to that information. Calls on those important days mean a lot to donors. And someone may say, well, I don't know their birthdays. Well, that information actually is, you can obtain the information simply by asking them and letting them know, hey, we are creating a database. We use our CRM system and we want to know your birthday because we want to acknowledge you on your birthday and we want to send out a birthday card or what have you. And they will willingly share that. And the other tool is friend them on Facebook because everybody has their birthday pretty much on Facebook. And once you know what that birthday is, you can put it on your calendar or you can put it in your CRM system and it will be a reminder. For example, today I just sent out 2 happy birthdays to 2 of my previous donors for the organization that I was with because it popped up on Facebook. But I have their personal number, so I sent them a text and I gave them a call and told them, you know what, really enjoy your day. You can also send personalized notes, but most importantly, you're going to keep it informal and you're going to keep it conversational when you're using these cultivation tools. So the first move is actually up to you. Remember, I started off saying, send a personalized note, send a letter of introduction. I always say go with handwritten because it's going to set you apart. from other nonprofit organizations, and pretty much is going to set you apart from any entity these days, because a lot of people don't do handwritten notes. What they do is they'll send a email, but it will set you apart. So send a letter of introduction, let them know who you are, let them know that what your organization does, but don't make it so much about the great things that your organization does. Make it more donor-centered, where you're trying to create a conversation around them being the hero in the community. The other thing that you can do, the first move is up to you, is board member introduction. And so I'm going to take a few moments to say that this is a great role for board members in the fundraising process, because I call this role for board members door openers. Basically, the board member knows a lot of people, and they're willing to open the door for your organization to be introduced to these people. So that lends you instant credibility, because your board member is going to be the one to introduce your organization or introduce the CEO to this potential donor. And so that allows you to skip some steps. They're lending you their credibility. And so now you've been able to skip some steps in building that relationship process. So board members' introduction are very key, and that allows your board members to be a critical part of fundraising without actually making an ask, because all your board members are not going to be askers. And so you have to allow room for them to have other roles in fundraising, and door opening, being a door opener is a good role for them. You can follow by a call once you've sent your letter. Once the board has introduced, you do a call. You're going to ask them for 30 minutes on this call. You're going to ask them for advice. You can enjoy coffee or lunch with them. At that time, you're going to take the opportunity also perhaps to invite them on a tour or to get involved with your organization. Now, if you notice in all of that, I did not say you're going to ask them for money. That is not the purpose of cultivation. Cultivation is the courting process of getting to know your donor, so that it will lead to the eventual ask of the money. But you're not asking them for money during the cultivation process. What you're trying to do is get them involved. What you're trying to do is learn as much as possible about this potential donor, so that when you do make the ask, you make it aligned to their values and you have the best chance of getting a yes. So ask, then listen, right? So make your visit casual when you go in, but purposeful. And you're going to ask probing questions when you get that meeting with them. And this is not the ask meeting where you're asking for money. This is the get to know you meeting. So when you go in and you get that 30 minutes that you asked for, you're going to ask them, what do you know about our mission, our vision, and our work? Are you familiar with our services and programs? Do you know anyone who has been or is a client of our organization? What do you believe are the perceptions about our organization in the community or in the region? And what are your perceptions on our effectiveness? So you're going to ask these types of questions, and then you're going to listen for the answers, and you're going to make notes and mental notes, or if you feel comfortable, you can make handwritten notes. I say mental notes because you don't want them to know that you don't want it to be so obvious in the process. So make mental notes through this. And actually, this tidbit of information came from a friend of mine that subconsciously, I was using this tool. Is when you do get that meeting with them, it is better actually to get that meeting in their office as opposed to taking them to lunch or in their home, because when you do get to meet in the office, you get to pick up on other clues about who they are. And those other clues, one of my favorite donors, he has his college alma mater materials all around his office. So you know, okay, he's a UT Longhorn, or he's an Aggie, and so you can make that mental note. You know, he was a hunter and had pictures of hunting around his office. So you make that note. And his dog actually was in the office with him. So make that note. You know, he's real passionate about his animals, and his dog is his constant companion. And so those are good tips that you can find when you meet in someone's office. So if you're able to secure that meeting, I say do it in their office, because you're able to pick up other clues about who they are and what they're passionate about, and you can use that for your information. So what have you learned when you go into their office? If you can, you've asked those questions. So did you hear enthusiasm in their voice and see it in their body language when they started talking about a particular topic or a service that you provide? You know, what do they care about the most? Have their personal experience tied them emotionally to your client? So when you ask that question, you know, do you have, what experiences have you had? If they've shared that experience that your client had, you'll get that information. What other interests or philanthropic and life do they have? What is the apparent level of wealth? You can get that a lot too by visiting in someone's office or home. And what is their family situation? You can get that because you'll see pictures of their families in their office, and you'll start to piece that together. So those are the critical things that you learn when you set up these face-to-face cultivation meetings. And even if you're on Zoom, oftentimes you can see the background of where they're meeting from, and you can still get some of this information from Zoom, believe it or not. And so the whole goal of what you're trying to do is you're trying to do a donor loyalty ladder. And so donor cultivation takes many forms, but in its essence, it's a series of steps that you're taking for your nonprofit to move the donors up that ladder. So let's talk about it. So first of all, they're suspect. That's just somebody that you know that you think you want them to be a donor of your organization, right? And so they're a suspect. Then you move them to the prospect level. And the prospect level is when you talk about identifying them and qualifying them. Do they have an affinity for my organization? Do they have the capability of giving to the organization? And then you go through that process, and then they become a one-time giver, right? They make that first gift. And how you treat them after they make that first gift is so critical and is so important. You have to make sure you send at least within 48 hours of the gift. And I know that might seem challenging for some, but a good practice is within 48 hours of the gift, you send a thank you note, a handwritten thank you note. And if you can't do it within 48 hours, you can pick up the phone and call them within 48 hours, and then you can send that handwritten note. And for some, you can also send, if this is their first gift and their first one-time gift, you can send them a welcome packet to your organization, which would include the thank you note, and perhaps it include a little token gift. And I'm not talking about a token gift that you go out and you pay for. A lot of donors don't like that. But if it could be something that is handmade by a client, you can send that. And then you'll send them maybe a little brochure or just a little bit more information about your organization. And that will be your first time donor gift. So if you treat them right, they will turn into a repeat giver, which is they'll give multiple times. And then you can move them up to sustainer. And this is, they could turn into a reoccurring monthly giver. Then you can move them up to an advocate, where they give and they make recommendations from their friends who will also give. They will actually start referring their network to you. And they will say, have you considered Sabrina for a gift? I know she's passionate about the mission that your organization does, and I would recommend that you connect with them, or I can set up a meeting and introduce y'all. Would you consider that? And then they turn into a major donor. Now, a major donor for each organization could be different. For my organization, we consider anybody over $500 a major donor. But if you work for a university or something like that, your threshold could be like $25,000. Some organizations that are a little bit larger could be $5,000. It just depends on what you consider, your organization considers as a major donor. And then you can move them up to planned giver. Now, planned giver is where they leave your organization in their will as a benefactor, or they have a life insurance policy and the organization is the benefactor for that life insurance policy when they pass away. And so that's the kind of ladder that you're trying to move your donors up and through. And so the next step that I would like for you to do, because I always like for people to have some next steps and have some concrete things that they can do to move their organization forward, is have your board members and staff identify 5 people that they will cultivate. And then create a cultivation plan using the 5x5 cultivation plan. And I'll share with you how to get that. And then you're going to determine how your 5 people will be touched at least 5 times by your organization in that year. And then you update that plan quarterly. And I add staff in here because sometimes we forget, if we do have staff in our organization, that they also know a lot of people in the community. But really and truly, what I am talking about is getting your board engaged in the fundraising process. And this is one of the ways that you can do that. And so you can take your board members through this process of identifying those 5 people, cultivating them, and then being responsible for those 5 touches for your organization, and have them report back quarterly at board meetings. And so I'm gonna tell you how to do that at the end. So what I really don't want you to do is don't skip straight to the ask. You cannot do that. Cultivation is not a step that can be skipped. It lays the foundation for the ask. It is the gateway for building a relationship with your donor, communicating with them, and ultimately moving them towards the ask. So please don't skip that step. It is a critical step. So the resources that I talked about, the 5x5 cultivation plan, can actually be downloaded from this site. It's www.supportingworldhope.com/VIP resource library. And not only can you download the actual plan, but you can also download the steps for the exercise. And if you don't want to jump straight into the cultivation plan, and because you don't even know who's identified, who has been identified for your organization that has the affinity or the ability to give, you can actually start with the prospecting phase of it. And that's also included in there. And the steps on how to do that exercise with your board is also included in there. And it's all free. It's a free resource library. And I failed to mention that, I apologize. But it's a free resource library. You just have to go in and obtain the materials, and it will clearly say, a board prospecting exercise and board cultivation exercise, and you can actually get all the tools that you need to actually be able to walk your board, and even yourself. If you just want to start with yourself and make sure this method works, then start with yourself. But I will attest that this method works because I used cultivation for over 15 years as the CEO of a nonprofit organization. And my board raised over $2 million each year. And we had a give a get policy of $5,000 each. And my organization was located along the Mexico-Texas border in the third poorest county in the United States at that time. Now I've been told we are the fifth poorest county in the United States. So we're getting better. But the system, the whole process works. And that is why I wanted to share that with you, because it does work. And it works because this is some of the things that what my clients are saying. This is a testimonial from Palm Valley Animal Society, actually helped them with their fundraising event. And it was the largest fundraising event that they had. They raised over $300,000, $300,000 for their event. And so the system works. You just have to work the system. And so now that we've covered cultivation fundamentals, you know, the last thing I would like to talk about before I take your questions is I would like to invite you to join the Build a Thriving Nonprofit Summit. And that summit is actually going to be happening with a kickoff party on October the 26th. And the summit itself will happen October the 27th through the 30th. And it's a free summit. And we're going to have 12 expert speakers as a part of that summit. And it is going to be focused on how to raise more money to increase your impact, how to engage your board to help fund your mission, and build community awareness to increase your donor base. Again, it's going to have 12 nonprofit expert speakers over 4 days. The conference is going to be over 4 days from 9 to 12 each day. And we're going to be discussing how-tos, best practice, and what's the next thing coming up in our industry. We have topics that range from how not to suck at virtual events, understanding peer-to-peer fundraising. So we have a vast amount of topics. And the reason why this summit is happening is because we understand that nonprofits are looking for new strategies to grow their donor base and increase their fundraising. They're needing to engage their board and build community awareness. And they're looking to actually rebound from COVID-19 or in the early stages of developing their organization. So you can actually go to buildathriving.nonprofit.com and register for this workshop. So I am going to ask if there's any questions at this time, particularly around the topic of cultivation. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and come on and see if anyone has any questions. Any questions? Let's check out the chat here.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll shoot. I did post in the chat, some of the nonprofits, as you know, we do have a for-profit sector. So some of those products are developed not only for-profit, but also for some of our clients in order for them to be able to utilize the nonprofit services correctly, right? So I was wondering if sending one of those gifts, like sending a workbook that we have constructed, because I mean, that is something that we paid for and published for, sometimes, you know, depending on how it's donated or paid for. Would that be wise to send to a donor so they understand what the products do and how it's helping our clients?
I think that it would be, but you have to know your donor, only because I specifically have several donors that say they don't want anything that is high polished or paid for. It's just because they don't want the nonprofit to invest their dollars in that. So you have to know who that donor is and if they're going to be receptive to that information or if that's going to repel them. And that's why that cultivation process is so key, to know the donor, if that makes sense. Perfect. I have another question in here. It says, in mid-August, I met with a potential donor who asked me to follow up with him via email. He ended our 18-minute meeting telling me, I'll consider how I can support your work. I have sent 2 follow-up emails and have had no response. I don't have his phone number. I'm wondering at this point, what is the sensible next step? Do I assume he decided not to be involved? I could drop off a hard copy letter with brochure to the office where we met. In a nutshell, I feel like I attempted cultivation. And this will happen, okay? Don't be dissuaded. Some people, the first question you asked me, what do you do? So what I would do is, if you have his email, if you have a newsletter that you could send him electronic, like if you have your newsletter, just make sure that you are continually kind of cultivating them, putting out those touches to this person via the source that you have, which is the email. So email them the newsletter, do all those things. Yes, I would then send a brochure to his office where you met. I would drop off that information. I would do a pop-in visit. I would ask if he was there. If he wasn't, I would just say, I'm trying to drop off this information for him. And the other thing that you need to do, and you need to use your board. Hopefully you have a board that's well connected in the community to find out about the current circumstance of this person. And it's not maybe even the current circumstance of this person. You're going to find out the current circumstance because life might have changed, or something may have changed in their life and you're just not aware of it because you're not in that circle with that person. But if your board members are, or anybody that you're associated with, they might be able to shed some light on that, right? 1. Or 2, they also might be able to tell you, hey, this person is not a person of their word. This has happened before. And so that indicate to you, okay, well, I just need to let this go because this is just a pattern of behavior. And that has happened to me before as well. And as long as you feel like, I don't want you to create extra work for yourself trying to go after this person. Pop-up visit, drop off the information, use your network, your board members to find out, has circumstance changed in their lives, and or is this a normal pattern of behavior? So you'll know how to move on with your time, is what I would say. I attempted cultivation, but was felt one-sided, so I don't know if I should leave it alone. Okay, I think that's a part of that same question. Yeah, so that's what I would do. I'm not sure if, yes, the VIP resource library does require a password to access it. What will happen when you go on the page, it will let you know. Basically, it's join the newsletter. Once you join the newsletter, you will get immediate access. You'll get an email and it'll have immediate access to the resource library. And if you get in there and you see a document that you need that is not there, just reach out to me, because I have so many documents in my computer that I just have not had time to upload into the library, but I am more than willing to send the information to you. So yeah, I'm very open to that. Not sure if anybody else has any other questions around this. And I see Colin wants the slides. You want the slides emailed to you directly. I will do that. And let's see, let me stroll up here to see if there's any more questions. Here we go. Okay, we talked about that. It's in the chat. Okay, so what if you don't have their direct contact information? Facebook fundraiser tools do not collect that information. And that's why I don't like Facebook fundraising tool, because you don't get that information. And what I would encourage you to do is 1 or 2 things. Look into Give Lively. Give Lively is a free fundraising tool that you can sign up for, and you can create the same fundraising campaigns that you create with Facebook, except you're going to get that information on the back end, right? But let's say now you've gone with Facebook and you don't have their contact information. If you know what company they work for, if you have that, you can go to hunter.io and you can put in that person's name under that company, and it'll give you their email for that their company email. That's the one little sliver of hope that you may have. But that's exactly why, Kathy, I don't like the Facebook fundraising. Give Lively, I really encourage it, so you can get all that back end data. So you can cultivate a relationship, because with Facebook, you cannot cultivate that relationship. You just can't, because you don't even know who they are. So that would be my recommendation around that. And then I see